All right, what is going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Masculine Health Solutions podcast, where we truly are blessed to get into a subject that I think too many guys are struggling with, not saying anything, just going about their day and then struggling their day-to-day lives. And it's kind of sad to see how many dudes are suffering with this addiction that I think is worse. Well, I'd put it right up there with fentanyl because it's silent, but it's killing people, in ways that you would never suspect. Hence the reason why Jeremy Lipkowitz is going to be here to kind of drop some knowledge on us when it comes to porn, right? Porn addiction. And off air, we were kind of discussing, a podcast we listened to where they're trying to justify it and say it's okay. But, if you dig into this subject matter, you'll see just how destructive it truly is. And I think it's filth and it's garbage. But on that note, Jeremy, man, what's going on, brother?
Not much, man. It's a pleasure to be here and happy to speak on this subject a little bit.
100%. And like I said, when I was going through your website and going through all your socials, which will be in the description, of course, so you guys can reach out. If you guys are struggling, be sure to reach out. One of these, when it comes to a subject that I really think a lot of people struggle with and do it in silence, I watch what you were saying about community. And again, I'm going to ask anybody, like right off the hop, if you are struggling with this, you're not beating it, you can't beat the addiction, reach out to Jeremy. He will reach out to you. He'll talk to you. You can join the community. There's tons of guys in there. But before, going back to the track of this conversation, I want to know where this kind of started for you and how you got involved, I guess, with your porn addiction.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, like many young boys, I was interested in sex and nudity and all these things from a very young age. So I remember, I don't even know, 6 or 7 years old, like the Victoria's Secret catalog would come in the mail, and even like the Macy's catalog or the J.C. Penney catalog would come, and it'd be like the lingerie section. And so, I just had an interest early on in sexuality. And I remember when
Mhm,
I looked at certain images, it made my body feel good in a certain way. It just kind of
mhm,
gave me this pleasurable feeling. And so that was the beginning of, a long journey that slowly over the years, just slowly escalated bit by bit. There was never a single moment where, okay, now I found something that I'd never seen before. It's like, it escalated from Victoria's Secret to, dial up internet or finding a nudie magazine or VHS tape, as we were talking about before the call.
yep.
And it just kept slowly escalating to the point where then we got internet. And by the time I was in college, that's when high speed internet was there. You had access to these tube sites. And that's when I really started getting into it, um, to the point where I was watching maybe 1 to 2 hours every night. I'd go home, lock my room, and 1 or 2 hours of just diving in and trying to find that perfect video. And slowly started to realize the ways that it was screwing with just first of all, just my physiology, my nervous system, my attention span, but then also starting to notice some of the ways that it was impacting how I objectified women, my views of women, my views of intimacy and sexuality, how it was impacting my relationship. So I started to notice some of these ways it was causing harm in my life.
Yeah. And would you say that the entire time that you were in college, it was pretty much just kind of in the like always in the on the back of your mind, you're like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna be done my class here in the next little bit. I'm just gonna go home and go rub one out, but it's gonna take like an hour to get there because everybody's always looking. And kind of going back to that, actually, I know we're probably going to discuss this more, but what's up with that like mindset too, where everybody discusses this, where it's like even my buddies back in the day, I remember talking to one friend and he said the exact same thing. And it seems to be like something in regards to like male psychology or something where it's like you're always searching for that next video. You're always searching for the next
Hmm.
video. And you end up reverting to that one favorite video that you had where you're like, no, I'm going back to this one. Like, is there a reason behind that? Like, what's up with that?
Yeah, I mean, this is something I talk about a lot, is that one of the things that addiction does to you is that you get, particularly addiction to porn or social media, but porn and specifically, you get addicted to novelty. Because what happens in your brain is every time you see a new video or a new actress or a new position, you get that little hit of dopamine, which makes you crave
Mhm.
it even more. And so you're training your brain, telling it that what will get you aroused, what will make you feel good is seeing something new. And there's always this promise of something slightly better just around the corner. And so
Mm,
that's why, we can spend hours and hours trying to search for that perfect video to finish on. I remember when I was deep in my addiction, I would like keep like 10, 20 tabs open, trying to decide, okay, which video am I going to finish on? And I could spend hours, this
yeah,
one's not quite right. I need slightly better,
yeah,
and I wish I was one of those guys that would just watch it for like 5 minutes and say, oh, this video is good enough. And okay, I can orgasm now. But for me, it would go down this rabbit hole of constantly edging and, just
mhm,
riding the edge of it for hours and hours, trying to find something slightly better. It can really be damaging to the brain.
yeah. And I think the problem with that too is that it becomes detrimental because you probably can't settle on one woman, let's say when you do grow up and get
Exactly.
married, right? So I'm kind of thinking that probably leads into that being a problem in the future.
It's the exact same thing. I mean, that's what I started to notice in my life, which was one of the big warning signs for me was I started to notice for me, there was this feeling with the women I was dating. It was always this feeling of there might be something slightly better just around the corner.
Hmm.
I need something a little bit better. This isn't quite good enough.
Yeah,
That feeling of this isn't good enough. I'm not satisfied with this. I need something more is a
yeah,
direct result of porn addiction. And it translates into your relationships where you think, this girl's got a little bit of belly fat or some cellulite, or she's not tall enough or not short enough or not, whatever it is. You're always
yeah,
looking for something slightly better. And the reason I knew this is that I had so many experiences of being incredibly attracted to some girl and then doing all the work to pursue her and get in a relationship. And then as soon as we're in a relationship, maybe a week later, 2 weeks later, I would start to get a little bit bored and say, not quite right. I think I need something else. And I realized that that's the same thing I was doing in porn. I was hardwiring that behavior in on a neurological level. I was hardwiring in those neural pathways.
yeah. Yeah, and unfortunately, it's kind of like I remember. I believe it was Your Brain on Porn, where they talk about how you're literally rewiring the neurocircuitry in your brain to be just addicted to this black mirror. And I'm like, bro,
Hmm.
when I heard that, I'm like, that's fucked. Like who
Yeah.
the hell wants that for the rest of their lives, right? Because my issue that I kind of think about now is this younger generation who's got all the options in the world right at their
Hmm.
fingertips. It's like, are they going to be able to pair bond the way that, we were able to? Well, for the guys that
Hmm.
kind of like busted out of that, because I mean, some guys might not get married because of this, right? Like they're going to be stuck in this forever loop of just looking for the next big thing, which I think is
Hmm.
kind of scary.
Yeah. And that was one of the insights I had in my life is like, I realized if I didn't change the way I was living, I saw where it was leading. I saw my future and I realized I'm going to be some creepy 65-year-old dude hitting on girls at college bars. Like I realized
Yeah.
that's the path I was headed down. And that was a wake up call for me because I also realized simultaneously what I deeply want, my deepest aspirations is to have a deep, committed, happy relationship with a single person. And then I
Yeah.
wanted to be able to be satisfied and go deep with someone, not just constantly be looking for the next thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of
Yeah.
guys are struggling with that, because of this behavior.
100%. And then going back to you being in college, right? Because we kind of went off on a tangent there, but
Yeah.
you were in college, and you finally, I guess, you graduate. You're getting, I don't know, mid 20s, whatever. When did you actually say to yourself, "Okay, this is an issue, and I got to do something about it"? Like, when was that moment? Because there had to be something that kind of probably spurred that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. There was one moment still very vivid in my mind. I just finished, so I went to the University of California at Davis studying genetics. And
Mhm,
then I ended up sticking around the university for another year doing research. So I was living in this university town. I was maybe 23, 24 at the time. And I remember like my life was amazing on the outside. I had a lot of friends. I was captain of a sports team, stellar student. All my professors loved me. Like I had a really good life. I had a
mhm,
lot of romantic relationships as well, a lot of, women I was with. And I remember walking down the street this one day. It was blue skies, sunny day, like everything was perfect. And I remember seeing these two girls walking in front of me, these two college girls wearing these, yoga pants, these black spandex yoga pants. And I could not help staring at the butts of these girls. And I was so consumed with this feeling of desire and lust and longing. And it was
Hmm.
this tunnel vision, this feeling that my mind had just gotten hijacked by my lust and I was no longer in control. And all I could think about was how much I wanted, no, actually, how much I needed to go talk to those girls. Like it was this feeling that nothing in my life matters. I'll never be happy unless I can go get that in some way.
Hmm.
And it was in that moment that I realized how much suffering lust was causing me. That lust itself was a state of suffering. When I was
Yeah.
looking at something I didn't have and wanting something I didn't have, that's what suffering is. When you want something you
Jeez.
don't have. And so it was that moment that also just made me realize like everything in my life is amazing. If I can't be happy now because I'm always looking at what I don't have, am I ever going to be happy? Am I ever going to feel content or satisfied? Because I keep getting all the things I want. I get the good grades. I become the captain of the sports team. I have sex with this person or that person. I keep getting the things I think I want, and it's not making me feel satisfied. And so I had this really deep existential crisis of like, am I ever going to be happy or am I going to be miserable for
Jeez.
the rest of my life? So that sent me down a rabbit hole of looking at what is happiness? What does it mean to be content and satisfied and at peace inside? And that, I mean, this is another rabbit hole we can go down, but that's what got me
Yeah.
into mindfulness and Buddhist philosophy and really looking at what real inner peace and fulfillment is.
Yeah. And I guess in that moment too, where you just kind of, it's interesting that you said that your mind was hijacked, right? And that's kind of where I feel like for some reason, I don't know, the more I look into it right now, I've always been big into the conspiratorial side of things. And they talk about the Jezebel
Mm,
spirit and they talk about how, like, sometimes the stuff that you're watching on that screen may not even be human entities. It may be somebody role playing, right? And this gets into like the whole succubus, incubus kind of side of things. And I'm like, is it possible that you could be so consumed with the media that you're taking in that you may be letting some of these attachments kind of come through, right? And I know this is kind of crazy talk, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't know, man. It kind of like it's spooky in a way, but it's one of the things that made me say, you know what, let's pump the brakes. I don't want that in my life in any which way, right? Because at the
mm,
same time, I started looking at some of these companies like Evil Angel, and some of them were talking about how they get down with witchcraft and they will actually incorporate it into some of the scenes, right?
mm,
And they talk about how, like, you know, when you get into some of the esoteric side of things too, it's like it's a battle against young men, right? And the thing is, they talk about how when you hijack the mind of a young man, what does he want to do? A whole lot of nothing, right?
mm,
It's kind of like you got all the dopamine releases you could possibly ever imagine. And then what do you do after? You know, you got no will, you got nothing. But it's interesting to me that in that moment, you talk about how it got hijacked. And now you bring up mindfulness. What was one of the things that you had to do then when you realized, like, okay, the first thing you did was like say, all right, cool. Like this happened in that moment. I don't want this. What was one of the like strategies that you implemented to counter that? Because that's got to be something difficult to come across, man. Like it's a pretty difficult truth to even accept, right? Like, let
yeah.
alone now have to deal with it. So, what was one of the first strategies that you implemented to kind of counter it?
Well, it was a long journey. You know, I wish I could say that I had some kind of like instant enlightenment and was able to break free instantaneously. But, you know, in part was realizing, you know, I had spent the better part of, 15 years hardwiring that kind of habit loop into my brain. And it was going to take time to heal my brain and rewire my brain.
Yeah,
And that was, probably the most important insight I had was really understanding neuroplasticity and understanding how the mind works. And that, there was this one quote I read. It said, neurons that fire together wire together.
wire together. Yeah,
And it just made me realize that every time I log onto a porn site, I'm just deepening the grooves of lusting after, women. And I'm
yeah,
strengthening those behaviors every time I log on. But the benefit of that is I realized, you know, I could actually use that same system of neuroplasticity to hardwire my mind in the other direction. Like if I
mhm,
want to be filled with contentment and gratitude and patience and compassion and seeing a beautiful woman as a human being, not as an object, I could hardwire in those neural pathways through intentional training. And
Yeah.
that's what meditation is. I mean, that's why I got so deep into meditation. That's why I ended up going on all these silent retreats and becoming a monk, was realizing that you can train your mind to have different neural pathways be your default patterns. You don't
Interesting.
have to live a life of being enslaved to lust and craving and longing and greed. You can
Mhm.
fundamentally change who you are. And so mindfulness really is the training of the brain, the training of the mind in ways that you want it to be, whether it's patience, courage, honesty, all those things.
Well, that's awesome, man. But like you said, it was a journey and it didn't really that's the thing though. I think a lot of people, including myself, sometimes just say, hey, you know what, I can white knuckle it, and I'll just make it through. And usually that tends to not work. It's kind of like when you were talking in that YouTube video about streaks and how, most people talk about the whole like, I'm gonna do no fap, I'm gonna do semen retention, I'm gonna do this, that, and the other. And then usually what ends up happening is it starts to unravel and they fall
Right.
apart and they're like, oh, I don't know what happened. I guess I'm going back to square one. So when you hear these things and you hear about the struggles of what they're dealing with, what would be like the first step that you could offer these people? Like, is it a form of meditation or is it just, hey, man, you're about to sit down? It's kind of like, it reminds me of a book. I think it was Atomic Habits, where he talked about how you just
Mhm.
put the guitar in your living room and then
Mhm.
you're going to tell your conscious mind to pick it up because it's like, well, it's right there. So you'll go do XYZ now. And the behavior will
Yeah.
kind of follow what you have in your environment. Is there something that you recommend kind of like that? It's like, okay, it's that time of day where you usually do your thing. Like, is there something that you should do to counter it? How do you go about kind of getting them started on that road?
Yeah. Well, getting started, there's so many ways to get started, but one thing that I'll say is, it's so helpful to understand your addiction rather than trying to repress it or suppress it, like shove it down, because that's the problem, as you mentioned, with people who are saying, okay, let me get this streak and I just focus on the streak. And then 2 weeks later, they're binging even worse than they were before because
Mm,
they had just focused on repressing and shoving down their emotions and thinking, oh, this is just evil. I just need to block it out and white knuckle my way to getting a streak. What happens when you do that is you don't actually address what's going on inside of you that's making you want to escape, that's making you want to numb out. And so to
mm,
really break free from this addiction at the root source, you have to actually go inside and understand what's going on inside of you and
mhm.
understand that addiction is a coping mechanism. It's a way of dealing with unpleasant emotions that you don't know how to deal with. It's always that. It's not about sex or desire. It's about running away from pain, whether it's boredom or loneliness or stress or insecurity or fear, all these emotions that guys don't know how to process and deal with in a healthy way. And so instead, they turn to a numbing agent. They turn to something that's going to make them turn off or numb out or escape that feeling. And porn is one of the most accessible ones. I mean, that's why it's so addictive. Is it's highly accessible, it's affordable, and it's anonymous. We call those the three A's of porn addiction. They're the three
Jeez.
things that make it super addictive.
Yeah, because I mean, the thing is, if I was a crackhead, I'd have to go outside of my house to go get crack. Like
Exactly.
I
And it
can't just
costs
have it coming out.
money.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the way I try to describe it, it's like imagine, what it's like to be a porn addict. It's like imagine if you're a crack addict and everywhere you go, you have to keep crack in your pocket at all times, so
Dude,
that
yeah,
it's
that'd be
always there, it's
difficult.
always accessible. Exactly, but that's what it's like because everyone has a cell phone and they keep it in their pocket at all times, so it's
No.
always accessible. It's affordable because it's free. You can get an infinite amount of porn for free, and
Mhm.
it's anonymous. You can do it without anybody knowing. Nobody can smell it on you. You're not gonna like smell alcohol on the breath. So you can do it totally anonymously
Yeah.
because of those three things. And getting back to your conspiracy theory stuff, like you don't even have to go as far to thinking it's like this grand conspiracy to make men feeble. Even if it's just the very clear reality that there is a billion-dollar industry behind
Yeah.
porn. There's a lot of money that is incentivized to keep men hooked on porn. The porn industry is bigger than all the major sports leagues in the US combined.
Yeah, I saw that.
combined.
Yeah,
Like
which
the
is nuts.
NBA, the NFL, people think, oh, there's so much money in
NHL.
the NFL, whatever. But
Yeah,
combine all of those, and porn is a bigger industry than all of them combined. So there's a
that's
lot of
insane.
money keeping men addicted to this stuff.
Jeez, man. And I mean, the thing that kind of blows the mind is just like, I think for me, that one of the most confusing things is just like how mainstream it has become.
Hmm.
Because like like I, I I do understand where people are coming from with certain taboo subjects and whatever, right? Where it's like, oh, we should talk about this more openly, sure. But when it comes
Hmm.
to porn, like I don't really see it as a taboo. I just see it as garbage. I don't really
Hmm.
see it being beneficial in any which way. Like I don't see it being enlightening. Like people are like, oh, you can do it kind of casually here and there, but I think that's a slippery slope for guys. Like,
Hmm.
if you get visually turned on, maybe for some females or people that say that it's educational in certain ways, I don't believe that at all. I think these are just excuses hidden and disguised to just kind of like entrap people into this addiction. And again, from a financial standpoint, makes perfect sense. From a
Yeah.
spiritual standpoint, makes sense too. You're draining your life force, and that's kind of where, the whole semen retention thing is also taken off as well. And I believe in that to a degree too. And I do believe that, you know what, a guy that's just jerking off all day is not going to have the same confidence as a guy who's like, hey, you know what? I'm in a happy monogamous relationship. I don't need anything funky. I don't do anything funky. I feel good. I feel respectable. I respect myself. I think these are things that are playing into society, which unfortunately I think is kind of pulling at the moral thread of society. Right. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
a prude now for saying that, but it is what it is.
Well, but that's the thing. It's like these porn companies have co-opted a very real truth, which is that our sexuality is beautiful and our sexuality is something to not shun or suppress. Like we actually should embrace healthy
Mhm.
sexuality and recognize it's fantastic. But they've taken that and use that as an excuse to say, therefore, any kind of sexuality or sexual outlet is healthy. But the truth is, this saying that like, oh, it's educational. You hear that all the time.
Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes about this is that learning about sex by watching porn is the
Yeah.
same as learning about how to drive a car by watching The Fast and the Furious.
Yeah, I forgot you
It's like
said
if you
that, but it
watch The
makes
Fast and
perfect
the
sense.
Furious, it's like that's not how you should be learning how to drive a car, drifting and doing like 360s down Tokyo,
Yeah,
highways. But that's what watching porn is like. Like people who think it's educational, you're getting a totally skewed, view of what
perspective, yeah,
sexuality, yeah, skewed perspective of what sexuality is like. And so it's not about, the difficult thing for anybody listening to this, like the difficult thing about this particular addiction is that you do have to learn how to find that balance between what is healthy sexuality and what is an unhealthy or unskillful outlet of sexuality.
yeah,
Because there is a line there. If you go too far in either direction, you go too far in saying, oh, all sexuality is bad and sinful, and,
yeah,
that leads to problems also. But if you go to the other extreme of saying, oh, it's all amazing and we can do all kinds of gangbangs and choking and slapping and,
yeah,
that goes too far also. And so it's like you have to find what is a healthy, skillful, embrace of sexuality. And that takes nuance, it takes understanding, it takes self awareness and honesty.
yeah,
And that's the difficult path.
100%. And the thing is too, it's kind of like I feel that unfortunately for so many of us, we get introduced to it at such a young age that it almost becomes real, right? And
Hmm.
I remember like we're talking before, like for me the first time I saw it was magazines too, right? Like I remember I think it was like a Penthouse or
Hmm.
I think it was a Penthouse or
Hustler or
Hustler. I can't.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that. Back in the day, you had to go to 7-Eleven and we would steal it because we were kids. So we're like, "Ooh, we got to get these," the bag magazines or whatever. And then you grab it, and then you go through it all, and you're just like, "Okay, so I'm expecting all women to be tens. First and foremost, right? They're all gonna be super hot at all
Hmm.
times. They all have to be perfect bodies. It's like, okay, I got to go to the gym so I look sculpted like this guy, right? Because this is, and it's all fake, right? At the end of the
Unrealistic
day,
expectations. Yeah.
100%. And the Fast and the Furious it's a fake movie. It's not real, right? And it's the thing is like first and foremost, like everything that you're getting is coming off of a screen. It's all manicured. It's all made in a certain way. It's all
Hmm.
painted. they're airbrushed. Like none of it is real, man. And a lot of the people too, like the more I look into it, I just think porn is disgusting as a whole, anyways, because you look into human trafficking and all the other things that are involved. Like
Hmm.
when you actually listen to some of the conversations that I've heard of these women that quote unquote are porn actors, they're like, I didn't want to be here anymore, man. Like I was done a long time ago. And here I
Yeah.
am just trying to make a buck. And then I make the money from the porn that I'm doing to now numb myself, or I'll use the money that I made off of the porn to now like numb myself by buying drugs and buying all that other stuff to make sure that I don't have to feel the emotions. So that kind of goes back to what you were talking about as well when it comes to, dealing with these emotions in a really weird abstract way for some of these females if they're not being trafficked, obviously. But it's almost like you hear about the porn star that's been, sexually abused in the past and how they kind of go into that industry because somehow, some way in their psychology, they found a way to make it fit. They talk about how they're taking control back. Like
Mm.
it just there's so many different things at play where it just doesn't make it just I don't know. I
Doesn't
just
make
feel
a lot
like
of sense.
I'm watching something filthy play out, man. And it's like a perfect blizzard of depravity at the end
Yeah.
of the day.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of messed up stuff, out there in the porn world right now. And fortunately, there's a lot of people that are shedding light on this, people that are talking about it, former actors and actresses who are speaking
Yeah.
out against it. And, you know, Layla Mickelwaite, who wrote, I forgot the name of the book, but, she's done a lot of work kind of showing the dark side of sites like Pornhub and how much sex
Yeah.
trafficking and child porn is on there and just how evil it is, really kind of vile stuff. But it gets whitewashed. It gets kind of portrayed as, oh, again, this is female empowerment and sexual liberation. And it's just a narrative from the porn industry
Yeah.
that they're trying to make us all believe that this is okay when it's not.
Yeah, no. I mean, for me, I kind of just wrote it off. And I got two young boys, right? That's kind of why, like,
Hmm.
I tell him, I'm like, bro, like, unless you want to be addicted to this garbage. And he even tells me, like, there's young kids at school. Like, he's in the ninth grade, right? And he's like, one kid's a porn junkie. And and yeah, I'm like, okay, so how do you know he's a porn junkie? Number one, he's like, he's always talking about it. And I'm like, okay, what else is up with this kid? He's like, I don't know. He acts retarded all day. Like, he just always, like, I don't know, he's got ADHD and he just kind of like, he just seems discombobulated, like, in every which way. And I'm like, interesting. I don't know if that's got something to do with like some type of trauma that he must have had when he was a kid. Now he's coping with it at such a young age using something so hardcore. But that's
Yeah.
kind of one thing that I did want to jump into because you did mention before that these are repressed emotions, repressed feelings. I'm getting close to middle age now where they talk about the midlife crisis. And I've done some research into, why this kind of happens and why these emotions, when they haven't been confronted, tend to show up at this age, right? But
Mm.
right now, I want to get your take on childhood trauma and how these things kind of manifest themselves into using porn and other ways, obviously to numb ourselves, but specifically porn usage because of what's gone on in the past in our lives. Like, how does this tie in? Because I've heard of other things, but when it comes to porn, that's one thing I'm like, really? That's a coping mechanism too?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's great that you're bringing in the topic of trauma because trauma really lies at the heart of a lot of addiction, whether people realize it or not. So, one thing I just like to say at the beginning of whenever talking about trauma, a lot of people think that, oh, I haven't had some big capital T trauma in my life. So, this is not talking about me. I wasn't sexually assaulted or I wasn't abused as a kid. So, I don't have any trauma. But the truth is, it doesn't have to be this kind of capital T trauma. It can be the lowercase t traumas of all the little ways that you didn't get your needs met when you were younger.
Hmm.
Maybe you got teased as a kid. Maybe your parents weren't paying enough attention to you when you needed them. Maybe there were situations that you didn't know how to process and deal with. Those are also traumatic experiences in that lowercase t trauma kind of way. So, for anyone out there who thinks, oh, that doesn't apply to me, it likely still does. In many ways, we've all experienced those traumatic kind of memories of not getting our needs met or not feeling loved, not feeling safe, not knowing how to handle different circumstances or situations. And so, what that does is that when you don't know how to process something, you turn to something that will make you feel better. When you're a
Hmm.
young kid, it's whatever it is that you find. Some people, they end up finding porn, and that's what makes them feel good. And they learn, oh, this is a reliable way to soothe myself and to numb out and to escape the reality of my situation. For some other people, it's they find alcohol or they find drugs or they find narcotics. It's whatever you find that gives you that sense of escape. That's kind of where what you get into. And for a lot of us young boys, sex was the thing that was there. It's like, oh, this makes me feel good. I can do it in secret. Nobody's going to know. I just got to find that magazine and or download that video. Young kids now, it's even worse because they have access to it all the time.
Yeah.
Our media is so sexualized now. If you're a young boy on Instagram, I mean, you're seeing AI OnlyFans models being promoted to you directly.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's just the ways that we start to numb out and learn, oh, this is a reliable way to get my little fix of feeling okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, to your point, I'm almost happy I found alcohol at 18.
Mhm.
I mean, for me, luckily, it's kind of, I mean, yeah, I did
Well,
drink for a little
I
while or
mean, it's
whatever.
let me talk to that because, it's actually one of the sad things is that because porn is so normalized and because it's like a medium, it's not this like super intense. You're not doing, you know, fentanyl or ketamine, not ketamine, but
Yeah.
trank, these things that turn you into a zombie.
Yeah.
It's almost in some ways harder to kick because it's so normalized and so accessible.
I would
And
agree with
so,
you 100%. Yeah.
yeah, like I
100%.
have tons of clients who I've worked with who are in recovery from substance abuse and they're, 10 years clean. And they've told me time and time again, porn is the hardest thing to kick because it
Oh,
is
yeah.
everywhere. It's so hard to kick out of your life. Whereas something like, hardcore drug addiction, sometimes it's easier because it's so black or white and it's so easy
Yeah.
to just say no to that. But porn is really challenging.
100%. And the thing is, too, it's like, number one, it's just the logistics of it. It's like, okay, I got to do all these things to go out and get it. And even alcohol, it's like, even though you can do Uber Eats and stuff, it's still, you got to go out of your way and you're going to deal with a headache the next day. I guess for alcoholics, they
Hmm.
don't care, right? But you got to do all these different things. Whereas with porn, unfortunately, and to your point too, it's like I've had to go on my algorithm on multiple occasions and put block not interested, block not interested, block not interested, right? But it's always like it's always trying to rear its head, and it's like, do you like this one? Do you like that one? And I'm like, no, I don't. Not interested. Not interested. Even though it knows, obviously, it's like, well, we know that this guy likes this, but not interested. And it's almost like you have to reformat your algorithm on multiple occasions until it finally gets to the
Hmm.
point. It's like, all right, thank you. Just show me powerlifting, show me Olympic lifting,
Right.
show me
Give me
bodybuilding.
motivational quotes and
Yeah.
strength training. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you have to reformat the algorithm, which is why I kind of feel again on my conspiratorial horse, it's like almost like they just want to distract you. But again, if you actually look at it from the financial perspective, it makes more sense. They just want to keep you on the platform. And they know
Exactly.
it's an easy hook. It's the easiest hook out there because every guy likes it, right? It's like, oh, here you go. You like booty? It's like, no. And it was funny because I was having this conversation with a friend of mine at work, and he's like, dude, I had to do the exact same thing. He's like, I had to go in there and like it took like a month of us just block not interested, and on multiple platforms because it's not just one.
Right.
And that's kind of to your point where you were mentioning why it's so hard to kick. It's that you will go on a brand new platform, but it already has like an AL avatar of you almost where it's like based off of your history, we know you like this. And it's like,
Yeah.
how did you know I like that? Number one. Number two, block not interested. And then number
Hmm.
three, it's like it just creeps you out because these algorithms are getting smarter and smarter and smarter. So it is like you have to be aware of it, right? But
Yeah.
if you don't kick it, it's right there, and the addiction's always kinda waiting around the corner, right? Which is a lot
Kind
creepier
of.
than alcohol.
Yeah. So here's the thing, and this is why I'm really passionate about, the work that I'm trying to do is really helping guys understand that you can break free from the addiction on the inside. Like
Mhm,
deep liberation from addiction, which allows you to then, thirst traps and all that stuff could come up on your screen and it doesn't hook you because you're free from the inside. It's not, oh man, I've got to use willpower every time I see a thirst trap come up, like I got to fight against it. Because like the goal of recovery isn't that you're living a life in constant battle against this
mhm.
thing and you just have to keep your guard up the whole time. The real goal of recovery is to have inner freedom. so that you can go anywhere and you can walk anywhere and open up any website. And you
Yeah.
know that inside you're free from the forces of craving and addiction. That's what
Interesting.
real liberation is. And that's, takes that work of mindfulness and meditation and really learning how to go within and understand your mind and understand the dynamics of the mind. That's how you find real freedom, because then it doesn't matter what they show to you. And then the
Yeah.
algorithm will learn on its own. It's like, oh, we can't hook this guy by sending him this. So we might as well send him the thing that he will click on, which is the motivational quotes and the gym
Yeah.
videos and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, but that makes perfect sense because 'cause you're almost protecting yourself from within, right? So
Exactly.
it's like you're
There's so,
demagnetizing yourself almost, right? Just like, boom,
yeah.
no, it's like, don't want it.
One of my favorite is like this stories from Buddhist kind of philosophy was there was this king who ruled over this kingdom, but there were all these thorns on the ground in his kingdom, and so he kept like bringing in all these advisors. He's like, I need some advisors to figure out like how to like make a rug big enough to cover the whole kingdom, so I can walk all over my kingdom without getting stabbed by these thorns. And he kept bringing in all these advisors, and no advisor could figure out how to make a carpet big enough to cover the whole kingdom. But then this one advisor came in and he's like, dude, if you just wrap your feet in leather, then you can walk anywhere you want and it doesn't matter because you won't get hit by the thorns. And
Yep.
that's what we're doing with mindfulness and meditation is like, if you protect yourself, if you know how to protect yourself, you can go anywhere. You don't have to
Mhm,
block out the whole world and say, "Oh, I can't go on Instagram ever because I'm gonna see something." It's like,
mhm.
learn how to master yourself, and then you're
Yeah,
free to go wherever you want because you're free from within.
yeah. It's that reminds me of the African parable too, where it's like, if there's no enemy within, then there's no enemy outside that can do me harm, if I'm not mistaken. I'm probably butchering it, but it's
Something
something
like that. Yeah, yeah.
along those lines, man, but it
Yeah.
makes perfect sense, and it's interesting to me how, like, that kinda ties in, like, for me, I wouldn't say I was ever addicted to food. I was kinda like 270 at one point because I was bulking, but I was just fat. But later on, I kinda learned about fasting, right? And one of the things that I learned about fasting, and I can't remember where it was that I heard about this, but the actual, like, philosophical approach of fasting from, like, a religious standpoint, I believe it was monks. I can't remember exactly. I read it in a book many years ago, but they basically said you wanna sit with the feeling of hunger and then just let it kinda just roll right through you. So you can
Yeah.
do the same thing with lust and with any other emotion that I find as well. Like, it's easier said than done, right? Like, sometimes, and again, one thing that I got to work on too is like, you know, I used to be pretty like I get angry real quick, right? So now it's just like, okay, sit with the frustration, let it out.
Mm.
Don't be controlled, don't be consumed by it, right? So I'm guessing that's one of the things that you kind of tie in when you're working with people as well. It's kind of like, hey, you feel that emotion, maybe you have an erection, but just sit with it, just kind of let it, make its way out of you too, because it's not going to control you forever, right? These feelings
Exactly.
are going to dissipate.
That's exactly it. I mean, what you mentioned is the process of learning how to, when an emotion arises, to just let it be there and let it pass through you,
Mhm.
not to suppress it and try to push it away or say, "Oh, I got to get rid of this," but just let it pass through you so that you're not, enslaved by that feeling, whether it's hunger. Like, you don't have to be enslaved by this hunger and say, oh, okay, I have to go get McDonald's and Krispy Kreme. It's like, oh, I can be with hunger and not let it rule me, not let it drive the bus. I can be with lust and feel that emotion passing through me without logging onto Pornhub and acting out. I can be with loneliness and just feel that emotion without thinking I need to medicate this away somehow. So that's
Yeah.
exactly it. I mean, it's like learning how to deal with these strong emotions in a skillful way.
Yeah, and that's kind of where breath work I found to be also very helpful as well. It's kind of like, especially with like more of like, and I learned that from driving too, where it's just like, oh, this idiot cut me off. I used to, I'd honk and I'd get mad. Now it's just like, okay. Like, one thing I learned from Huberman was actually like breathe out twice and then breathe in, breathe out twice, and then just focus on that until it's like, okay, it's out. But it's
Yeah.
almost interesting how the energy just kind of accumulates in the body in weird ways. And it's almost like you have to remind yourself of these things. But it's I think one of the most important things is remind yourself in the moment that you're feeling the thing. Because if not, it's just like, okay, cool. Like in the time of battle, it's like, I don't know where my sword is. And I'm just
Yeah.
gonna sit here naked and just be like, oh, all right, cool. I'm gonna get my ass kicked by whatever.
Well, that's, I mean, another great quote is like, we don't rise to the level of our expectations, we fall to the level of our training. Right.
Yeah.
And it's to recognize, like, yeah, you can have all these great aspirations of, yeah, I'm going to sit with this when it comes up. And then the moment it hits, you just revert back to your habitual response, which was, I don't want to be with loneliness. I don't want to be with boredom.
Yeah.
Boredom, I can't deal with this. I got to go distract myself. Right. And so training the mind is what we're doing. It's like we have to strengthen those neural pathways.
Super interesting, man. Super interesting. And something that I think probably has a massive carryover into other aspects of these dudes' lives. Like it can't just be one thing. But one thing I do want to dive into now, because you did mention it in one of your videos, was like the importance of community. Why does
Mhm.
that matter in your opinion?
It's the most important thing for overcoming addiction. The reason it matters is that a couple things. But one more obvious one is just having accountability that's outside yourself.
Yeah.
Because every guy will recognize this pattern of, oh, okay, I'm super motivated to overcome this addiction. I'm going to stop watching porn and I'm really motivated and inspired. And then he'll go for like 3, 4 days. And then the moment something happens in his life, he's like, I've lost my motivation. I'll do this tomorrow. I'll start again next week. And it's so easy to just slide back into your old habits and behaviors
Mhm.
if you're not being held accountable by anyone or anything. So if you are part of a community that holds you accountable, that reminds you of your aspirations and gives you a structure, a place to check in, and for guys to call you out and say, hey, man, you said this was important to you. Why are you sliding back into that behavior? Being held accountable is something we need, especially as men.
Mhm.
We're not meant to be lone wolf warriors. We're meant to be parts of tribes and communities, you know? And
Yeah.
so finding a community and letting yourself be seen just for that accountability is powerful. But then the second reason is it also helps you let go of shame.
Yeah.
Shame is the thing that says you're broken, you're messed up. If people knew the truth about you, they wouldn't love you. And it's a
Mm.
lie. It's a lie that we tell ourselves in order to not want to be seen. And so we hide away, we run away. But when you're in community and you can, if it's a safe space, if it's, like a healthy community, a men's group, something like I run, you can talk about the thing you're struggling with, talk about your weakness, whatever it is. And the guys aren't going to run away or call you names or point a finger and say, oh, you're so fucked up. They're just going to say, hey, man, we get it.
Yeah.
That's a tough thing you're going through. And that helps you break down the shame of feeling like you're all alone and nobody gets it.
Bro, I love that. I love that. And I think we need that more than ever. Cause I think unfortunately everybody's kind of siloed off into like their own little spaces in the world almost. And it's kind of that reminds me of what are they called again? They call them incels, right? Like
Yeah.
the guys that, you just, oh, I'll never get a girl, I'll never do this. And it's almost like this, and it's kind of sad too, because it ties into the whole suicide side of things as well, where I've been, learning more about that as well from, other guests that I've had on the show who talk about how, like, unfortunately men tend to go to the extremes when dealing with these emotions and would rather repress it to the point that, like, hey, I got massive depression, I got these coping mechanisms. You know what? Boom. Like, and to me, I think it's awesome to see the fact that you are helping people see that, hey, there's light at the end of the tunnel. You're not alone. There's other guys. It's not taboo because fuck, we all got to deal with it. It's all over the place. You're not alone in this boat, which is something that I think a lot of people are opening their eyes to. Like, and especially knowing that, hey, every young kid has to deal with this shit now. So I
Hmm.
think there has to be more awareness, and we can't accept the fact that, oh, this is just okay, and I'm like I do away with all that bullshit. Like I think it's
Hmm.
absolute hogwash when it comes to people that actually believe like it's something somehow positive. Like I'm sorry, it's not. It's garbage.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm just
Yeah.
gonna call it what it is.
I think the people who say that, like, because you hear therapists all the time. So, like, a
Yeah, I
lot of my
do,
clients will come
man.
to me and they say, yeah, my therapist just said, like, there's nothing wrong with this. It's just porn and you just keep watching it and it's fine. And I think some of these therapists have like never actually seen what modern day porn actually is, because
Maybe.
if they
Yeah.
saw like what was actually going on, or they're just in
Yeah.
denial themselves and they just want to keep watching it themselves. But yeah, you can't
Maybe.
really go on to like Pornhub right now and just be like, oh yeah, this is normal, healthy sexual expression.
No, and the thing is too, it's like when you study all the behaviors on it too, and like I work in a warehouse like full of dudes, like everybody just talks, everybody talks shit all the time, and it's just like, yeah, no, it's everybody makes reference to some of the most derogatory sexual behaviors, and I know it's because these guys go home and they whack off and like, "Yo, check this out." I'm like, "Oh, that's cool, fantastic, good for you, whatever." But I'm like, the fact that you're taking this in every single day, I'm like, it's not good for the brain, bro. Like, you need to
Yeah.
stop. Like, it's the thing is too, the way I kind of see it, your mind is like a garden. If you're putting all this garbage into it every single day in, day out, and you can kind of see it on certain people, which is, I don't know, maybe it's like an aura type thing or something, but I'm like, you smoke, you drink, you watch porn all day. Like there was one guy I can think of in particular, and he used to brag about the fact that he had, like about the porn that he would watch, and he'd be like, yeah, check this. I'm like, that's fantastic, man. Good for you.
Mm.
But I looked at him, I almost felt sorry for the guy, you know? It's like you're 80 pounds overweight. I mean, he would talk about how like he didn't love his wife, and it just seems like you're
Mm.
adding something to the recipe of just being unhappy at the end of the day. Like, I
Yeah,
just
exactly.
can't see anything good in it.
Yeah. No, I think very well said. Like you're just adding another ingredient to your dissatisfaction and your unhappiness and your lack of fulfillment, you know?
100%, man. But the one thing I want to finish up with now, though, is what would be the one piece of advice that you would offer guys that are currently dealing with this issue when it comes to porn addiction? Because we talked about it at length. We know what it is. It's everywhere. It's garbage. Like I said, I'm just gonna keep reiterating that because I feel pretty strongly against it as somebody who had to watch and consumed it for years. Right? Like I'll be completely honest.
Mhm.
Like, and again, going back to one of the things in your videos, I can talk about it openly because I'm like, it doesn't affect me anymore. But I had to deal with this for years and years and years. Right? But if somebody's at a place now where they kind of recognize the fact that, okay, I have an issue, I got a problem, I want to do away with this, I want to be done with it. What would you recommend for them to do right now at this moment in time?
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to the community thing. Like, always the number one thing I recommend if somebody just the one thing that they can do that'll have the biggest bang for their buck is get connected to other
Hmm.
guys who are on this journey. It's like having that accountability because inevitably your motivation's going to drop away. This happens to every single guy. It's like this cycle of like you hit some kind of rock bottom where you wake up,
Hmm.
you have some post nut clarity where you're like in a pool of your own sweat in your bed because you've been watching porn for 3 hours and you're just like, what am I doing with my life? Right. And so you hit that rock
Yeah.
bottom and then you think, I'm done with this. I'm going to stop now for good. And then 3 days later, you're alone in a hotel room and you find yourself going back to it. Right. And so
Hmm.
having a community of guys that is on this path with you, it reminds you of your highest aspirations. It keeps you accountable. So that is, the first thing is get connected. I would also say a big thing that I recommend is understanding your environment plays a much bigger